the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been in South Africa, beginning a three-nation tour of the continent aimed at countering Russia's efforts to boost its influence. He'll be heading to the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda subsequently. Mr. Blinken's trip comes hot on the heels of his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, who visited 4 African countries last month. So what's the big reason for this international spotlight on Africa? Well, for more on Mr. Blinken's Africa tour, I'm joined now in the studio by Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former Nigerian diplomat who served in many countries in Africa, Europe and the Americas. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
By the way, the first interview, that was a great interview.
Oh, you with Dike Chukwumeje. He's an extraordinary young man, isn't he?
Great interview.
And I've also been watching you. I mean, I saw one of your most brilliant interviews was on the morning show on Arise News not too long ago. So we're very honored to have you here.
But thank you.
Mr. Blinken's trip, coming hot on the heels of his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov's visit to Africa. Why this continuous spotlight on Africa?
You know, on a lighter note, I think Africa should welcome the attention. You know, doesn't it remind you of post-independent of Africa, where where Africa became the playground of the superpowers, and immediately the Cold War collapsed or ended. They virtually forgot that we exist. But now with the Russian, Ukrainian, and and the need to have allies all over the place, they remember that because Africa is sort of neutral, they're not too sure where we're going to and how we are looking at the whole. The foreign I can't remember when the last time the Russian foreign minister was in Africa, but here he's in Africa. This is probably one of those periods that you find the Secretary of State of the United States visiting Africa all within about 6 or so months. So we should be happy that But essentially, again, they are looking for allies. They are looking to convince people to support their positions, vis-a-vis the Ukrainian war, and of course other issues that they have on their plates.
And of course the Biden administration, we mustn't forget, last year also launched its US-Africa policy, and Mr. Blinken was in Africa visiting Nigeria, Senegal and Kenya to launch that policy. So could this current visit be seen as a continuation of the launch of that policy and looking at US strategy towards Africa? Because I think he's going to unveil some more.
No, absolutely.
I
think he has actually addressed this issue you raised. And I didn't get the whole speech. I just caught the parts of it before I left home. And he made it clear. He explained that he has spoken about this in Nigeria during his first visit, and that he was going to expatiate on it for better understanding about President Biden's policy in Africa. But you become a little bit suspicious that this is coming so close, to and you could see the way it is traveling, to countries that they really believe they need to talk to in order to change change minds.
But it's interesting. I mean, to be fair, just following up on what you were saying about him having made a speech, and I mean the thrust of that seemed to be that the focus was now going to be less on counter-terrorism, which has dominated American policy towards Africa, and more on development and diplomacy. Is that a more positive thing?
I think so. You remember, I think it was on one of your program months or years ago when we were talking of the Chinese assistance to Africa, and there was this cries about Chinese, creating, making Africa indebted to it and the rest of it. I remember I did say that, look, if the U.S. wants us to take wants Africa to take the United States seriously, they should put 60 billion, just like the Chinese, on the table to aid African development. So if they've now come round to say we want to focus on, look, you know, as a number of people have argued in this country, when you look at the instability in this country, poverty is one of them.
Absolutely.
Poor governance is also part of it. Now, if they're going to put in money to help address some of these issues, it will significantly help you know, the continent, and
absolutely,
of course Nigeria as well.
I think that makes a lot of sense. But of course, specifically, as you mentioned previously, there are also likely to be, there have been discussions around South Africa's position with respect to Russia, you know, especially given South Africa's apparent neutrality during the UN vote on the invasion of Ukraine, because they actually see South Africa as a regional superpower that could be the key to bringing a lot of African countries on side.
Yeah, yes, you're right again on that, because that was the way he started the speech, by saying that I have launched this, I have spoken about this before in Nigeria, and I'm here to speak about it again in South Africa. And he gave the reasons, which of course is what you said. South Africa being a strong regional African power and a regional power, you know. But I think that, look, the more the war in Ukraine lasts, I think almost everybody has taken sides. I'm not too sure that you're going to change
convince
minds.
people, yeah.
No, I'm not too sure you're going to change minds, talk less of countries. Yeah, they probably will just become indifferent, because, look, most people are not tired and, you know, of the war. Analysts like you are saying that, look, we've been on this because the Russians initially thought this was going to be, you know, a very quick operation, but now it's gone. Very soon we'll probably enter 200 days of the crisis, and we're nowhere. So I'm not too sure it will change minds. But sincerely, you know, we should welcome this visit and hope that the United States will really engage the continent more seriously and help on issues of development, because that's exactly where we need tremendous amount of assistance.
Just analyzing further what Mr. Blinken said, I mean, during that speech that you mentioned, he was insisting that the US wants a true partnership with African countries, and that it doesn't see the continent as a playing field in a rivalry between great powers. Do you believe that?
That's a good thing to say. It will be welcomed, you know, as, look, it was America and our other traditional friends that somewhere along the line abandoned us. We did not abandon them. A good example that we did not abandon them is that today, the first port of call for any Nigerian who wants to leave this country is either Britain or the United States of America. So we did not abandon them, but somewhere along the line, for whatever reasons, they abandoned us. So if they've decided they now want to come back and engage, they now want to help provide, you know, development to the continent, after they've seen the effect and the consequences of abandoning Africa, it's a welcome development.
Yes, but to be fair, and let's not, I mean, obviously the points you're making are very valid, but let's always keep that superpower playground thing in the back of our minds, because he did allude to Chinese and Russian influence, saying African countries should have choices without pressure or coercion. But Africans don't feel coerced, do they?
No, we don't feel coerced, and I'll go back to what I said previously, which I repeated myself. Look, if they don't want us to ally with A or B or C,
put the money on the table.
Put the money on the table, for goodness sake.
I like that.
Put the money on the table. You know, I've forgotten how the gamblers say.
I think that's a very pragmatic approach.
Look, the Chinese cannot be giving us, cannot put on the table 60 billion for Africans to loan from for economic development. The Americans come and start preaching to us, and then the French do practically nothing but remind us that they were colonial powers, and they still have some you know, stake against Francophone nations. No, if you really want genuine relationship and you really believe that you want to help us in terms of economic development, put the money on the table.
Put the money where your mouth is.
Yeah, there are so many areas that can really help. When I was in school, I cannot remember how many American lecturers from the United States, not only in University of Ibadan in those days, but Lagos, Ife, and ABU. But today you can hardly find any, because they are not putting so much.
Absolutely.
They're not putting so much attention on human capital development like they did in the early years of Nigerians the post-independent years and up till the 1990s, before all just collapsed, and then they all left.
That's a very good point. And South Africa, almost buttressing the point that you're making, has accused the US of trying to punish African countries for refusing to join Western calls to condemn Moscow. Is that justified? I mean, is there evidence?
I have not seen any evidence of any punishment. Look, in any case, the only way they can punish us, actually the only nation today that can really punish us in real sense, again, is the Chinese. All they need to do is take away the money from the table, if they want to punish us. Others, what would they do? They probably make, getting visas, more challenging. Already today, to get a British visa or an American visa is very challenging and very expensive. By the way, very, very expensive. And this is where we need to engage some of these countries. You accuse this continent and its people of capital flight, and then you build them so much to get a visa, British visa, American visa, particularly British visa and the rest. You pay so much, and then they turn around and accuse you of capital flight. It doesn't make sense.
And it's interesting the point you were making about the Chinese putting a lot of money on the table, because if you compare that to the development aid that Western countries, particularly the US and the UK, used to give to Africa, I mean, they've cut their aid, a country like Nigeria, by up to 80%,
they've cut all these things significantly. Really, even, again, I go back to educational exchange, probably doesn't exist. And these are the things that they need to bring back if they want to win the continent. Look, if they don't put money on the table, let them do a few significant things. Restore back this human capital development. Make it very easy for our students who want to go abroad to study, particularly those who want to do higher education to study. Let's go back to what we had in the early years of Nigerian independence in the 90s, where there were exchange programs, and things like that. That will really, look, what created the love of Nigerians in this country? It was because of those little social things that America was doing, and including of course some of those movies of those days, that glorified, not necessarily American power, but American social life. The long, big cars, the cowboys, the dressing, and of course, later came on the soul music and the rest. This is what created that love and desire to, for why most people wanted to go back, to go to the United States. Somewhere along the line, things became more challenging, more difficult. So if they want to win the hearts and the minds of the people of this continent, they need to restore some of these things back, including putting the money on the table.
But as you said, the important thing is that at least they've changed their focus, and the focus is now more on development and diplomacy.
So much work.
That's the whole thrust of the new policy.
Sure, we work on that.
And the other African countries that Mr. Blinken is visiting are the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Do you want to hazard a guess about why they were chosen? We know they're accusing each other, DRC and Rwanda, of fueling conflict, especially Rwanda, which is accused of having links to the M23 rebels who are fighting in the DRC.
No, I think with specific regard to the DRC and Rwanda, I think it has more to do with the conflict. They certainly want to make sure, look, these are two friends of the United States as well. I believe they want to make sure that the conflict remains manageable and doesn't get out of hand, which will of course create more problems in terms of what they want to do in the continent.
So basically, in conclusion, the strategy seems to be to grapple with China and Russia's growing influence in Africa, but without painting African countries as geopolitical pawns?
Hopefully we'll wait to see that this is exactly what they want to do. And again, I'll repeat what I keep saying. The Russians have actually not done much in this region in the last couple of years, apart from putting some troops in Mali, if I remember correctly. You know, in terms of development, you know, they haven't done as much as the Chinese have done, you know, but they provided some assistance to some select, countries. Fair enough, you know. So if they want to counter this relationship, I think they have a lot to catch up.
Ambassador Joe Keshi, I want to thank you very much indeed for coming in. And Ambassador Keshi is a former Nigerian diplomat who served in Africa, Europe, and the Americas.